Yep, I definitely haven't woven my ends in still. Welcome. Hello and welcome to Heather and Hops. My name is Kat or Catherine and I'm a knitter based in Hertfordshire in the United Kingdom. This is my little space where I've documented my knitting journey from my very first project through to now, where I have hopefully started to cultivate a sense of community for other people, where they can come together and chat knitting and spinning and fibre related things, and maybe even not. I'm definitely getting more and more excited about other things at the moment. That's not to say I don't want to knit, that's just, it's sunny, I want to walk, I want to move, I want to do things, and I'm very grateful that my body is sort of allowing me to do that. Anyway, I digress. Yeah, I hope this finds you well today. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here for a while, it's lovely to see you. I did a whoopsie on this video. I really am a little bit sad. I went to the effort of recording this chat properly, so I used this camera, I had my mic, I had more footage than I was able to get through recording on the platform we used to chat. So unfortunately I lost quite a bit of high quality footage, so this will just be a video chat of our video, but hopefully that shouldn't take away from the niceness that the conversation was. Susan is the creator of the Journal of Scottish Yarns. I think it's yarnjournal.com is the website that she's using. It is a wonderful project. If you've been here for a while, you might know that I have a passion and a love of Scotland, and I really do love the yarn that Scotland seems to be producing, and the flock of animals that are there. I've got a project next to me actually, just because I was just talking about it. These are knitted using Iona wool, which is one of my favourite Scottish yarns that I had not used before talking to lovely Susan. These are the duplicate shorts from the summer edition of Pom Pom magazine. I will talk about them more in another video, but just to highlight this gorgeous yarn. It's a fairly toothy yarn, but it softens up so much with wear. And yeah, I talk about it a bit more and in this video. So I won't take up much more of your time now. I just hope you have a really lovely week. I hope that you have something to keep you company, whether that's a hot drink, a cold drink, a tiny human, an adult human, me, whatever, you know? Whatever you do this week, be kind to yourselves. Send a message to someone that you haven't in a while. Check in. That's something that I've been doing lots, or trying to do more and more recently, with the goal of having face-to-face contact. I've talked about this quite a lot lately, but it's become important. Anyway, enjoy this conversation and don't forget to love each other.
Yay! Okay, well let's try that anyway. Okay, but so if I record on here as well, so here being my phone, what do you want me to sort of set up recording? Just put it next to the...
Yeah, just so it's a bit higher quality. This should be fine, but yeah.
Let's do this then. Right, take that out. Oops, there we are. Right, that's fine. Actually, a better view, and you can tell me where I've got shadows. I actually put some slap on this morning for this.
I've got a little bit of, me look a little bit fresher, but not.
Yeah.
Quite nice too. I'm not gonna, like, for a long time I was like, there's no point, but it's quite nice to express, you know, yourself and feel quite different as well.
Yeah. I actually because I put some eyeliner on, but yeah, anyway, you can edit this. I'll just chat as I normally do. But I love Bobbi Brown long wear eyeshadow because it actually stays on me. But they've got this special edition just now, which is basically metallic pink and metallic lime green, and it is stunning. Anyway, so I didn't put that one on.
I would like a metallic lime green.
I think my eyes are quite deep set, so eyeshadow never stays on me, but this long wear one does, which is another reason why I just love it.
I have that too. But here it just never. I think I can't remember what they hooded. It just
Yeah.
have to use like a really heavy duty eyeliner for it to stay.
Yeah.
and the fact that I just cry all the time doesn't help.
Oh, okay. Happiness, I hope.
Yeah, always. You know, someone showed me a picture of a puppy at the weekend, and I was like, gone. Like, come on, cat.
You must be following all the lambing stuff that's going on just now as well. Oh, and somebody, I can't remember who it was. It was one of the Crofts, I think, because the happy lambs and all the rest of it, but they, of course, some of them put up the reality of farming too.
Yeah, I think that's important. If I'm honest, like I mean, we can choose what we see and what we don't see, so you've got the choice. But I think it's, you know, not just for, you know, to see both sides, but to support farmers almost, you know, to let them, so that we can then in turn support them, you know, mentally, and, you know, see how hard they work to provide us the meat, but yarn, you know, they have the experience. I mean, did you read about Alice's loss with the, you know,
Alas, in the storm Arwen? Yeah, I know, that was just devastating. I actually went back to another knitting retreat at the beginning of March. Oh, it's a friend of mine who's just started knitting over Christmas, and she wanted to go. I was like, oh no, I'll have to go with you. And yeah, she did the tour, and she mentioned it, but she was so matter of fact about it. I suppose what else could she be?
Yeah, I think again it's probably a better way to be, isn't it, than panicking and like getting upset and angry. But Alice has got to get up and go and get on with things, even when everything's battling her, you know. Again.
Well, I think, because I'd heard the story a couple of times, so just how she got started. Although it is somebody I want to speak to, so I know it's Journal of Scottish Yarns and everything, but I get to decide where the border is. That's one of and I do want to go and speak to Alice about a few things, just including her story. But I hadn't appreciated that one of the first spinnings that they had done of the mohair, I don't know if it was just lack of experience or basically the mill screwed it up, whoever the mill was, but they lost the whole clipping. And she ended up, I think she said for that, I mean, this is years ago, whenever she got started, she had to buy in mohair to have a product to sell, which must have been absolutely devastating.
Yeah, after all of that time and effort and energy put in, you know, day and night to get it to where it should be, and then have an external factor really. But
nothing compared to losing the animals, though, as she did.
Yeah. And she still keeps going with a really good attitude. I mean, if I could be half of that, I'd be a happy person, you know.
I know, she doesn't need emojis, does she? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put this on, because actually there's a photograph. So we had the photo shoot. I think I sent you some pictures in middle of March, and there's a picture. You know, don't have to, but we did this sort of editorial. Hello, this is what it's about. Who am I? I get to choose my job title, and I kind of had vaguely in mind that I wanted to have a photograph, and I was going to wear all the designs.
Amazing.
And first of all, the layout designer chose one of these sort of, you know, portraits looking into the distance, professional and all the rest of it. And I thought, nah, could we have the one with my dog in it and me wearing all the samples? So that's the one that's next to the introduction, including, because your design layers beautifully, it really does. So yes.
So exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, I should put another one on as well.
Well, oh yeah, keep layering.
Layering, yeah. This cowl is Border Mill Alpaca Rose.
Oh, gorgeous. I haven't seen that in real life yet. I haven't given it a feel. Is that Emily's? It is, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. So, I mean, it actually goes around 2 times. I've actually got a big box next to me because one of the things that I'm going to try doing is kits. Somebody told me if you go to the States and you go to a wool shop in the States, you go in and you're quite likely say, look, I'm cozy, I'm happy. And I don't know, I almost got the impression that there's more kits in the yarn shop in the States than there is actually loose balls of wool.
Wow.
Which might not be true, but that's kind of what I picked up from them. And it made me think that, okay, if there's a demand for kits, then especially some of the wool, like Rennie's, I think is quite JC Rennie, which is used for actually this cardigan and mittens. There's not that many places, shops stock it, but their website is fabulous for getting it. Knit Rennie. And I thought, well, for the non-size specific accessories, I'm just going to have a go. So I've got kits. There's a big box of wool here, and also it gives me the opportunity to have even more wool around me. Yeah, so I've got kits and just for the gloves, this cowl and triangular scarf.
That's lovely. Lots of wool in the house.
Yeah, lots of wool, and therefore lots of moth repellent as well, although I need to find a good solution to that.
Oh yeah, I hadn't heard of anyone that I know having an issue, and then 3 people in the last sort of 5 months of, and which is pretty good going when we know so many knitters, but still it's a bit scary. I'm like, oh, most of it's away, but
I know it's just absolute dread. So I've got mothballs everywhere, but yeah, there must be good solutions that I've not discovered yet. Yeah.
A call out on Ask as well.
They do good point.
I'll see if I can find it for you and just send you a couple of screenshots, because I think there was some good advice, but most of it was post situation rather than, but I'll have a little look.
Yeah, like freezing things and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
I'd be prepared to get a freezer just for that if I had an infestation. Partly because I've got a very small freezer, it wouldn't be big enough, but yeah.
Yeah, same. And ours is always full, especially at the moment. I've been doing my sourdough again, and I'm actively trying to keep a full loaf in the freezer so that I don't always have to week in, week out. But that's taking up a whole drawer in itself. I'm like, well, vegetables are going out the window then.
Have you got a name for your starter?
Do you know what? I probably can't say it on a recording, but we call it the.
Oh, okay.
That's what my mother called it, and it belonged to someone else that called it that. So my starter's, we think about 12 years old, maybe even 13. It's a teenager.
Yeah.
But that's what it was called, and that's what my mum would say when she was on holiday. Can you go and feed the? And I'm like, yes. And when you say it around someone that doesn't know what it is, you're like, this isn't a person or a creature. It's a sourdough starter. But I think is it Sweet Sparrow with her Will Wheaton is brilliant.
What, Royal Wheaton?
Will Wheaton.
Will Wheaton. Oh,
good one. I've not really named it myself, but I might have to give it a new more.
I don't know. I think that's pretty good, because we got ours from Garter Stitch Farm near Stirling. It's quite a popular sort of supplier, and their starter is called Mildred.
Oh.
Yeah, so ours is therefore Mildred, although I think we're on Mildredette.
Mildred. That's nice too, though.
Yeah. So, but she does, and my daughter, she's 9, but she gets a bit freaked out because we do talk about the Mildred as if she is a member of the family.
But they're living, they are.
Yeah.
And it's a bit sad if something goes wrong. You're like, oh no.
Yeah, dog's number 4 member of family. Mildred is number 5 member of family.
Yeah, Audrey's 3 starters definitely 4. But she keeps just sitting at the door looking at me like, are you gonna let me in? I'm like, you know how to get in, love. You can go the long way.
Yeah, who's training who?
Yeah. Oh yeah, she's definitely runs the house. I'm like aware that time is moving. I've just realized that it's nearly.
Oh no, it's just so nice actually.
I'll hit record on this one because I know I end up waffling and then ignoring everything else.
Yeah, I'm recording anyway, so
brilliant. Thank you. This one up here has a time limit and it cuts off every 25 minutes, so And once you start talking about something, suddenly you're like, it doesn't matter. So I'll try and be good with that. But
Sure.
I'll film an intro afterwards. So
Yeah.
we'll start and see what happens. But if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure, that's a good place to start. Yeah. Yeah. Hello, I'm Susan. So the job title I decided to give myself was publishing editor of the Journal of Scottish Yarns. First edition coming out, will due out 31st of May, as long as the file goes to the printer. Yeah. And the other job title I was thinking about was Chief Yarny. That was a better one I came up with, which I prefer. Yeah, so I've been pulling together since last September, when I finally gave up a grown-up job, which had really been, I'd been thinking for at least 10 years of something else to do that involved making things. So that's where my heart is making things, and especially in wool and colour, and putting wool and colour together with patterns. I haven't read a book in years, but I read patterns, endlessly. So, and I realised that, as well as wanting to do something creative that involved those textures, that I've got loads to learn just about textiles and what's going on and history. And being in Scotland, I get to decide where the border is drawn. I've decided, therefore, I'm not being purist about this at all, but being in Scotland, that's kind of the scope. So looking at the history, culture, what's going on, community, people, businesses, and really writing their stories. So it could be story, well, for example, one that we've been working with, Iona Wool, your design. So where did that come from? Because Iona is absolutely tiny. So how did they come to having knitting wool, or actually used very good for weaving as well, I understand. Especially when you discover that no one in the shop actually knits.
That's wild.
And there are, I think, like a lot of people in the islands, they've got multiple jobs, so they've got several people actually help out in the Iona craft shop who started Iona Wool. And it's just a fascinating story where it came from, and it's a lovely, So anyway, that's a really good example, I think, of the sort of story that's out there. It's just understanding more about where things came from, but also, in Scotland, as the rest of the UK and Europe, we've got centuries of history, and that's just when we started coming to trade textiles, let alone it just being part of people's subsistence, since the Bronze Age and probably before.
So interesting. And there's most of us don't know the story of kind of how we got here and how wool has survived, evolved, and changed over, centuries.
Millennium. That actually is another article about the first edition, is about the native Scottish sheep breeds.
Oh, cool.
I must admit, I started with a view of how different can sheep be, right? Especially when you look at a field, and we do have in Britain, there are thousands of the meat producing sheep, and maybe they do look the same. But having researched this and 10 native sheep breeds in Scotland, it'll be interesting to see what feedback I get if people come up with other ones. And you've got the soy, which is in an island in St Kilda, and that is, I think, I'm just trying to remember, I think that's one of the oldest sheep breeds that goes back to when they were first introduced to Britain, and it's one partly because of geography. It's on an isolated island that hasn't evolved. It's not crossbred with anything else, but it means they're extremely hardy and extremely well adapted to where they are. Right down to 1988, there was a agricultural college, Macaulay Institute, I think, in the Borders, wanted to come up with a sheep breed with a really good quality of fleece. So they crossbred Shetland sheep, who are hardy, really good mothers, but good quality wool as well, with Australian merinos, which are not hardy and are not suited to the British climate. And they came up with this breed, which has got the most amazing head of hair, and sort of, it's got a fringe. called a Beaumont.
Ah, wow.
Yeah, and Alice at Whistlebear's actually got Beaumonts, because
Yeah.
this flock that I think the project ran out of funding at some point in the probably 1990s, but the flock was distributed, so people took it, and I think there's quite a few down in Devon, although apparently they've been crossbred with more merinos, so they kind of moved away from the Beaumont. But then people like Alice at Whistlebear, who's got some, and then various other people. But there's no Sheep Breeders Association. So that's another thing. What's a Sheep Breeders Association?
Yeah.
Which
Wow.
kind of puts that breed at risk, because there's no record of. Anyway, and so on and so on. So yeah, all
We've
that.
actually got soy in the, believe it or not, in Watford. We have this bizarre, I don't know what to call it. I'm not, if I'm honest, I'm not sure how I feel about it. But we went, and for years I could hear wolves, could see wolves and hear wolves on the end of our woodland or park. And I was like, this is weird. And you could see flamingos. And we finally went into an open day, because it's almost never open.
Yeah.
There were zebras, alpacas, but also soy sheep. I was like, what? And
Not the same enclosure, I hope, with the wolves.
No. But I was gonna say, what, I wonder what they're doing with because there was quite a few of them, surprisingly, and the same with the alpacas. I wonder what they're doing with the fiber. I hope it's not just, burnt or.
Well, hopefully not. Well, yeah. I discovered that because there's the Rare Breed Preservation Society, PST, Preservation Trust, which is quite a recent thing, and some of these sheep breeds, including the soy, were critically endangered, and they've helped to promote them. But I think and I might get this wrong, but I think part of it is making sure that there are some of the sheep in other places, so that they can breed, I suppose, in different bloodlines, but also just the numbers more than the island and St Kilda can support. So it's probably part of that, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I should maybe go and ask and actually investigate it a bit more. I hadn't.
Find out what they do with the fleece as well, because apparently it's one of the double coated sheep. So you get the coarse outer hairs, the weatherproof ones, but the inner hairs apparently are incredibly fine and really good for spinning with.
How is your spinning? Should I ask? Can I ask?
Yes. Also, it's one thing was just with pulling everything together. I keep wanting to go and pick it up and do more, which I'm delighted actually that just learning that has grabbed me enough that I want to do it, because that's a big test for me. But the fact that you can just pick it up and go and do it for 10 minutes is wonderful. But I've not even been through 100 grams of fibre yet.
Right. Are you spinning quite fine?
No, I think you could probably say it's very varied just now. Characterful is the other word. I'm looking over there because I can't remember if it's over there. No, I go find my spindle somewhere. Yeah, no, and I. So this, I suppose I should say for the audience that this is an article that I've got in the first edition as well. How would you go about learning how to spin? So it's not step-by-step instructions. It's more, if you were going to do it, how would you do it using books or online resources or in-person learning? And so I went to Jenny House in Berwick-on-Tweed, who she used to run this NABS yarn festival. Actually, I never made it to it, but and did a half-day workshop with her, which was fascinating. And there's stuff like she was telling me that when you start out, you should use a sticky fleece. So you probably know all this because you use a spinning wheel. But of course, the bunch of the 100 grams of fibre that I wanted to take away was a blue fleece Leicester, which is really quite silky and therefore much harder to spin. And you're supposed to spin that from the fold.
Okay, I'm not doing that at the moment.
Well, I'm not either. I'm doing the pre-drafting slivers. So there's all these terms. It's wonderful.
There's a lot to learn, and I love that you've gone from this perspective of actually, rather than teaching someone how to knit, teaching them how to teach themselves or to find the resources to help, because you know, I think that's more beneficial because it opens up different ways of learning rather than just, you know, having, you know, I feel like multiple methods is always best.
Yeah, I know, and especially if you like using a couple of different ones, and yeah, no, and one of the things that I want to do through this journal or magazine, I don't, journal or magazine, what's the difference? Discuss, is to
Conversation.
meanwhile, another tangent, is to promote people, businesses, activities, projects, communities. So if I can promote, you know, what other people are doing. So for example, one of the first person I spoke to about learning to spin was Debbie Zawinski. So she wrote the book In the Footsteps of Sheep. I don't know if you come across that one.
I've heard of it and I really want to get hold of a copy.
It is absolutely lovely. It's like a travel diary. So she actually was the person who added on sheep breed number 10, the Beaumont, made sure I had them all covered. So she went around the country and she hikes and camps while she's doing it, trying to get a hold of the fleece from the sheep. I mean, not going and grabbing a handful, but, you know, pulling the, what do you call the Shetland word for hintalligates? I think it is. So it's the bits of fleece left on a fence or, you know, on the ground. She didn't manage it in every case, but how she went about just finding the sheep, seeing the sheep, getting fleece, ideally from source. It's just the most charming, gentle story. I really recommend it. And from what I know about you, I think you might really...
I really enjoy that, I think.
Yeah, so the thoughtfulness and...
Am I right in thinking she maybe made a pair of socks?
So every
every
breed she's made a pair of socks. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's a story of who the socks are to go to. Because on her travels, so there's one bit, I can't remember which breed it was, but basically she went, in one of her hikes, she found a bothy to stay in, right, in the middle of nowhere. But she was a bit disappointed to discover that somebody was already in the bothy. You know, these are tiny buildings, shelters in the middle of nowhere for walkers and climbers, people like that. But she ended up, you know, spending, you know, a good few hours with this chap in this small building overnight. Which, yeah, but she ended up chatting to him extensively, and sounds like they had one of those sort of life-changing conversations. So he then became the recipient of those socks.
Oh, you know, that's so wholesome.
Yeah, it is awesome. It's just lovely, lovely stories all like that.
I'm gonna see if I can get it. That will be my next one after the book I'm currently reading, I think.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's one of these books, I think I agreed with somebody on Instagram, that it's one of these books that you'd be loath to lend to anybody.
Yeah. I'll recommend it to you, but you have to get your own copy.
Yeah, exactly. Haha, sorry. Yeah. It's a bit hard to get hold of because it was published in the States, but you can get it in the UK. There's quite a few actually of the yarn shops have it. I did see, I can't remember which one exactly, but it was published by the same company that did Zimmerman, Elizabeth Zimmerman's
Oh,
book.
really?
I think it's her family, Schoolhouse Press have got a publishing company, so they publish it. But she's actually written another book. So this In the Footsteps of Sheep was all about Scottish sheep breeds, and she wanted to do the same thing, so walking around Wales, because she is Welsh.
Wow.
Looking at their sheep breeds, but then COVID happened, so she couldn't do that. But what she did instead was a series of designs. I don't know what the designs are. I suspect it's accessories again, hopefully more socks, and reflections on what was happening or what she was doing at the time. So that's written, and she's just waiting for her, I think a friend of her daughter's to take the photographs, and then hopefully that'll come out in the next couple of years sometime. So that'll be lovely.
Too, yeah, and it's really nice that while she maybe had an idea and, you know, things stopped it, she was still able to continue with something equally wholesome by the sounds of it.
Yeah, exactly. So that Debbie was the first person I spoke to about learning how to spin, and she recommended a list of people to go and speak to, including the guilds, the guilds of spinners, weavers and dyers. Although I have to confess, I didn't speak to them, but I've been all over their websites, got amazing resources. And then Jenny in Berwick-on-Tweed, Weft Blown in West Kilbride on the West Coast, which they supply a lot of spinning and weaving equipment. So yeah, it's just one conversation leads to another. It's a bit like going to Whistlebear last, was that October, and meeting you.
Yeah, that was special. The variety of people we were sat on a table with and their stories, fascinating. I mean, going from art history to geology to Journal of Scottish Yarn.
I know. Because the story, of course, was that at that point, so I was probably only 5-6 weeks into planning for the project, and I had a list of designers to contact, and I'd researched. I mean, I'm open to being I don't think I'm ever going to do open calls, but I do want to make sure that I give opportunities to people, but I need to work out how to announce that.
Do it later. I have a recommendation, maybe, of a suggestion that I meant to message before about, but my...
Fantastic. Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember that yourself. Right. If you don't remember, I will. Yeah, and then so one of the people that I'd contacted actually just couldn't make the deadline, which was absolutely fine. I'm sure other people did that. And then having met you at Whistlebear and then looked up on Ravelry some of your designs, I'm so pleased I contacted you, and of course this design is the result.
I'm surprised at how that came out, because it was very different to what my brain had initially thought of, and not that it looks wildly different, but it behaves differently. Like, I couldn't believe that it's more versatile than I had hoped in that. I thought it would be able to wear it a few ways, but it's really surprised.
What was your original thought then? I'm just sure. These beautiful cables.
Yeah, well, it was just that it would be able to be worn tied up and worn around the neck, but just the once. But there's quite a few different ways of doing it, or even it looked quite cool as more of a stole for the evening. Yes. Yeah, it was a lot more versatile than I had initially imagined, and even a non-knitted belt with it would change the whole feel of it too, I think. And yeah, so it came out just a lot more versatile than I really thought, and also a bit more high fantasy, maybe. Yeah. It's a bit, you could style it very classically, but also if you really were into, I don't know, dressing as a wood elf.
Yes.
I don't know.
It's funny because the design always makes me think of, is it the 1960s? So tabards. That's what it makes me think of. But actually, when you announce this podcast, it's not a podcast, is it? YouTube.
Yeah.
Journal.
Yeah, I always call it, like, I try and refer to it as a knitting journal rather than a podcast, but I'm still finding it hard to put it in a box 3 years on.
Yeah. When you announce this conversation, I've got a fabulous picture where, talking of versatility of this garment, of Kathy's Knits down the road here in Edinburgh. She was so much fun. We ended up, there's one very silly photograph, but she still looks stunning, and then there's a very serious, gorgeous photograph which we're using actually in the journal, where she's got it as this beautiful structural scarf. And she just looks so comfortable and happy. But the really silly, great one is we've used the belt and tied it like in a bow around her head. No, it's more like, and it just looks so cute. And she looks so happy with this picture. But I'll post it on Instagram when you share this. I'll send it to you before as well. But then there's another couple of pictures, because so the son of the layout designer I'm using, amazing. So he's 17. So his girlfriend, this is a talk about connections and serendipity. So his girlfriend she loves the camera. I don't know, she does drama as well. So she came along as a model, and there's a photograph of Lars and his girlfriend Emily and they're both wearing a version in this photograph, and it makes me think of, I keep thinking Boadicea.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's almost, I mean, it's not an aggressive picture at all, but it's like almost like standing ancient Britain,
Yeah.
proud. Yeah, incredibly versatile. And I've had the announcement I did of your design. I think the comments I had about the versatility were really quite remarkable. It's wonderful. Well done. Well done.
No, thank you for. It wouldn't have come to fruition, and definitely not nearly as speedily, I should say, like as it did. So, and thank you for having me. Like,
No, not at all. And fingers crossed for the future as well, because your designs are fabulous. They really are, and they're different as well. I love the way you just seem to start with an idea and follow it through, and they're not. I don't. What's the right word? They're not chained to any existing concepts. I mean, you from the little I know about you, obviously been gaming and fantasy and the fantasy is, what would you call it? The sort of genre you're into?
yeah, fantasy, I guess. It's come accidentally as a kind of as a side thing to knitting, really,
Yeah.
but also a bit of alternative music and stuff. And I've just finished a jumper actually that is veering more towards 80s punk. And Alex, I'll show you afterwards.
Yes.
Not because it's secret, just because then I have to go up and
You have to go and get it. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I mean, I knitted it expecting it to be a comfortable piece that I would wear, but I wanted it to be distressed intentionally. And Alex was initially like, you're gonna ruin your jumper. And then yesterday when I put it on, he was like, this is your best piece yet. And I don't agree with that. I definitely don't, because it's a simple, very simple jumper, but I'm really happy with it. And
brilliant.
It was just I want to recreate a jumper from when I was 16, and I want it to have a bit of an edge, but I've made it a lot longer, so it's incredibly practical but lightweight for me. And I quite like the idea of merging practicality, like having a really intentional purpose with something a little bit, I don't think the word kooky, but creative.
Yeah.
Presenting it rather than
different. Yeah, just different, unusual.
But yeah, thank you.
And I saw, because you made, I can't remember his second name, James, designer, and you made a black version of his sort of net.
James N. Watts' pure mesh pullover.
Yes.
Oh, that piece.
That's gorgeous. And you've made another one as well, haven't you? I think I saw. Yeah, but it's just the way you style it, and as well, it's stunning and inspirational, and yeah, when you see the photographs, because one of the things I wanted to do in the journal was use a variety of real people as the models, which I've done, and you just see that this works on so many different ages and body styles, and it works on boys as well as girls.
Alex actually tried it on, and I was like, oh, this is quite cool. I mean, don't know how else we could style it on you, but it works.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and just as a layering piece as well. So the basic, because of my shape, I never tie things at the front, but I tie this at the back. I just have the belt hanging there, so it becomes just a waistcoat, but it is so cozy for wearing. Yeah.
You do have a fantastic selection of knitwear on.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So this one. So this is Mary in Holland, who's also based, she's down south as well. She's Walton-on-Thames.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, she goes by Mesame. I absolutely adore Granny Squares. And she does very clever things with Granny Squares. So this one, do you crochet at all?
Yeah, not loads and loads, but yeah.
Have you come across what does it call it? The continuous Granny Square join?
No, but that sounds useful.
Yeah, and the drop loop join, which I think might be part of the continuous Granny Square join. So you basically don't have to sew it together. So you make the insides of the square, because there's 3 rows. You've got clock things going on there.
Just done it, yeah.
Yeah. And then you crochet it together, which is the most satisfying process. Absolutely loved it.
I don't always seeming, that's the one thing that put me off of a granny square blanket, is without it.
You'd like this thing because you can use it for any granny squares, and it's just wonderful. And so she'd always wanted, when I contacted her, it turned out, to do a waterfall front cardigan. So it's got really big fronts on it, but it drapes beautifully, but also because it's got little buttons on the shoulder, it is so cozy. It's lovely. And she did this one with 3/4 length sleeves, although I must admit I've got a crumpled heap of my version, because this is the sample that will go back to Marion. I've made the sleeves full length, and I've actually added another motif, but partly because I'm tall, onto the bottom as well. But yeah, it's absolutely lovely. And this is the Rennie's wool. It's worth a look.
I can't believe how well all of these colours match. And I know some of them are from, like, they're from 2 different designers, and then you've knitted the yellow, but did you intentionally do a palette?
Yes.
Or, yeah.
Yeah. Did I not? So I had a mood board.
Yeah.
What I like doing, and hopefully this came across, was finding good people to work with who are fun to work with as well, and then not getting in the way, so giving them free rein. And so there were 2 mood boards. So one was Hebridean Islands, so it was quite clearly sands, turquoise water, blue sky when we get blue sky. So all of these ones, although the serpentine though is the colour you chose, and that was one of the very clearly one of the Hebridean beach.
Yeah, green.
Yeah. But the sand and it could be either really. And then the other one is the Great Tapestry of Scotland's colours inspired by that, because I like them. This is a bit of a value, I suppose. It's that fundamental to me in the process, is that so the designers like yourself made the first sample, and the second sample either myself or my sister have made, and that's had 2 advantages. One is basically we testing the pattern while we're going, which has been really, really helpful for the tech editing. But the second one is that I just want to be able to say, it's not put my name on it, but at all, of course, it's more an endorsement, a personal endorsement. Yeah, and the reason I've got look, I've got a big heap of stuff over there. I've made most of the patterns myself, and we'll have a version of most of them in my wardrobes, as well as the samples that I'll take to the odd show and stuff, and that might be displayed in, like, so Iona Wool, I think, would like to display one of the samples, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'll just have a version of everything. Gone off at a tangent again. So these colours now, the Hebridean beach scenery. Actually, I'll just show you these ones.
If you don't, shall I put up a picture of would you mind me sharing a little bit of the mood board?
No, not at all. No, there's 2 of them. If you've not got them, and I'll send them. So these are very much my colours. I just love turquoise and grey and yellow together. This is obviously unblocked, but look at the bounce in that. And then this is my version of this cardigan, unblocked as well. It's a crumpled heap.
Those colours are stunning. I really, yeah.
This, it's just, so it really came from the mood board. But I'll show you, because this is a tapestry version. Wait, is that a cat or something?
Oh, Audrey is staring. It was a little midgie.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm here. Yeah, this is a tapestry version, right?
So fun. I saw it on Yes. It's gorgeous too. I think a granny square is one of those things that you can change the feel so quickly. Everyone could have a version for themselves, but that is so fun.
It is, isn't it? And actually, what Marion wants to do, and I think she might actually be making a purple version herself. What she wants to do, because these are quite random, although it's the same 4 contrast colours. There's 24 different versions of the square, but what she would like to do is make it that you use the same colour sequence, so that it's much more ordered, and see what that looks like.
Yeah, that again would be so different to that version.
Yeah,
I think I'd like to knit one, crochet one.
Do one. Yeah. Oh, it's so enjoyable to put together as well. And she's got these short rows. I don't think she thought that, well, anyway, crochet short rows are a thing. Whether they were already, they are now. Just to put all that together. Anyway, yes, make one. It's gorgeous. It's really nice. And granny squares you can pick up and put down anyway. And no sewing.
I really am someone that really quite likes those finishing and seaming things, but for some reason with crochet, it just doesn't, I don't know.
Well, this is because you do the last, the putty colour here. That last row is actually what you're making while you assemble. So you make all the insets and then you're actually crocheting it together using that, and you kind of go along and up and down, and got a picture obviously down. It's brilliant. It's really satisfying.
Oh. I've got so many. I'm going to try not to get overwhelmed by the amount of questions that I could ask. But how did you? When did your fibre journey kind of begin? Like, when did you start? Is that a long time ago?
Yes, well, it was actually when I was quite a small child. I think I might have even been just 6 or something, because my gran taught me to crochet first, because she was always making things. She was doing tapestry, needlepoint, and she was knitting, she was crocheting, and then eventually she was making bobbin lace.
Oh, wow.
She used to be a matron of an old folks home down in Lincolnshire, Woodall Spa, and one of the residents there was a bobbin lace maker, so she taught her. And then when my gran moved back up to Greenock on the Clyde, she brought this with her and taught lots of people how to make bobbin lace.
Wow.
So she was just always making things, and she taught me how to crochet, and I've lost it. I think in possibly a boyfriend split up, it's got lost. I made this thing and it was called the shawl, obviously capital T, capital S. And this thing was the most disgusting set of probably mainly acrylic colours from about 1977, something like that. And it basically, I just started crocheting a circle and just went out and occasionally increased. So it's got all sorts of different, it had all sorts of different waves and bits to it, but this thing ended up being probably about 1.5 meters wide, and that was just I practiced, and then I got into knitting. But then when I was at university, I did some knitting for a wool shop, which you're just a something to do. But I really got into it thoroughly, gosh, probably about 15 years ago, something like that. And then through the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, which I think the first one was in 2013, something like that, and then became a massive thing in 2015 to 2019. Discovered British wool and the hand dyers, and actually the provenance of the wool, which I just hadn't appreciated before. It was something in the distance. And just meeting people like Alice from Whistlebear and the lady that used to run Bar Mew in Yorkshire, who I understand are defunct now, which is such a shame. And at that point, I hadn't understood even things like the Shetland wool producers, like Jameson's of Shetland, Jameson and Smith Wool Broker. And it was really just beginning to learn. And then I discovered Ravelry. In fact, that was before, because that was late nights when my daughter was born in 2012. Surfing the internet on my very small BlackBerry at that point, discovering Ravelry, that helped. And really just from there, and then Instagram in the last few years, that's been my fibre journey. And then even as recently as last September, so one of the first things I did when I left full-time employment, and it was a little present to myself. It was just my birthday's in August anyway, and it was a bit of a birthday present to myself, right? I'm going to go and do the natural dyeing course at Garter Stitch Farm in Stirlingshire. And it's run by Julia Billings from Wool and Flower. And I just turned up to this, a bit like the spinning, just thinking, I want to give it a go. I'm not even thinking it's a hobby, but it might be something that captures me. I just want to know, it's just something different. And in doing it, just began to appreciate just what's involved in dyeing, let alone natural dyeing. And there was a lady there as well from another yarn company. I can't remember her name, but she used acid dyes, where Julia specializes in using natural dyes. So to hear them sort of comparing notes all the way through about, so a lot of the process is very similar, but the preparation of the materials and how you have to treat them in the modifying, bit like slivers and drafting are not words that were in my vocabulary before, but I'm delighted to say they are now. It's the appreciation when you speak to people of the story and the effort and just the love that has gone into what they've done. And a bit like the Iona wool and your design, because the wool and your design in that first edition, I don't know, it just gives me even more of the warm fuzzies when you're making something.
Yeah, no, I agree. My sort of dive into provenance and thinking a bit more like that, and trying to think of not just wool, but wool in particular, I guess, but kind of as much as I can, was coffee. And it's really strange to think that, going and having one coffee with someone, but finding someone that's passionate and truly loves what they're doing and can explain what they're doing in a inaccessible way it can change everything for someone. And I try and apply what I learned through learning that one first coffee that really hit the mark to everything. And this wool is definitely one of those things that, the fact that I've returned to it again shows you. But
well, it turned out, because I did ask Michael from Iona Wool, Iona Craft Shop, where did the single origin concept come from? Because that's part of their brand, single origin. And even though they could use fleece from Mull, which is half a mile across the Sound of Iona, on a ferry, they don't. They just stick to what's on the island. And the sheep there are for meat producing, so the wool is very much byproduct that didn't have a particular value other than as an indication of the health of the animals. And if the farmers and the crofters change the breeds of sheep they have, well, that changes actually what they take into Iona wool, although they're selecting the fleeces for the quality. Where was I going with that one again? Forgotten.
We were talking about passion, I guess, but
yes, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that was it. That's
origin.
Origin. Oh dear. Yes. Yeah, so I asked him where did you get single origin from? Coffee and chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, and that makes sense, and it is wonderful because it is like a blend of coffee, even though it's all from one farm, or it's not. It's one island, but there's seven breeds in this one, I think.
Yeah, it's massive, and most of it is actually Scotch mule. Which is a mix of the Scottish blackface, which the wool generally gets used for mattresses and carpets. I know it should be, and blueface Leicester, and they select the fleeces that have got more of the blueface Leicester characteristics, but they still use the other fleece anyway, and they have these beautiful felted slippers made out of them, out of the second grade. Oh, I've got a pair. They're absolutely stunning, gorgeous. Anyway, yeah. Well, but it's just appreciation and just what they've put into this and where the concept came from. And it's even more amazing that because none of them are knitters themselves, but they just appreciate what's around them and they wanted to make use of it.
It is lovely, and it's amazing that you've now become a part of that by lifting up their story, which is very special. And
I hope people are as interested in it as I am, because that's just one story out of 7 that we've got in that first edition, and I'm well into the planning for the second and third editions as well. So I've got all the contents listed out. I've just once the first one is actually posted out to people, then I can really get into the writing of it. And the second edition end of November, that should be out.
How are you finding working kind of mentally that far ahead? Is that different for you, or are you used to it?
Yeah. Well, no, that's okay, because I don't want this to be a flash in the pan. That's the thing. And I think my professional adult career has given me skills of thinking ahead and the planning, and things don't happen unless you actually plan them. But this will only work as well if it's credible, and that means it's a quality thing that happens when people expect it to. It's just that because it's the first one, it's particularly difficult just because there are so many things that I've had to do for the first time, including finding people to work with, that of course I won't have to do as much of for the subsequent issues. So I wouldn't have expected to be doing quite so much still on the first one while I'm already into the second and third one. But that's just sheer logistics with the printer. And one thing was, so a postcard. So I had beautiful illustrations commissioned. I'm saying beautiful because I just love them, of those Scottish sheep breeds to go with the article. And I love them so much that I'm having them printed as postcards.
Wow.
And they will be available for sale. And a postcard, what size is a postcard? Well, actually, a postcard could be A5 or A6. And this is something we were talking about before, of that thing of just simply talking to people face to face, rather, even if it's over Zoom or Skype or something, rather than doing everything by email. When I say postcard, I think A6. When the very, very talented, lovely lady who's done the layout design using the illustrations thinks postcard, she thinks art card, which is A5. So yes, I'm expecting a virtual kick to come from the layout designer at some point. But it just goes back to, this is something I shouldn't have known actually from my professional career again, is specifying requirements and being really clear about things. But it's just that sort of thing is a learning, and it won't happen again. But it's just trying, yeah. So it's
so much to remember. It's different if you're doing it on your own and you're aware of what the next step is for you, but trying to not mind read, but trying to do something. So it's a very definitely nothing to stress about, but I understand that there would be repercussions and stresses, but as long as you learn from it.
Yeah, exactly. And the last thing I want is for people to get stressed. You try to build into deadlines enough time, and it's worked most of the time, but I think it's the layout designer who's borne the brunt of that, because where she would, and it's only fair that she sees things when they're in the final version, and then she does her beautiful creativity. But she's had to rework some things 2 or 3 times simply because of my lack of experience. So I'm worried that she's not okay. I think she's grown up. She would call out if she wasn't anyway. So that's it. But it's amazing, actually. I am just so chuffed of what all these people that I've been able to work with have created.
But this is you've done this. You've instigated it. Yeah. You can't undervalue the part that you've played. And
yeah, you're right. I'm so looking forward to hopefully being able to just, when I've got the printed thing in front of me, which I don't know when you're planning on putting this podcast out, but it should be before the last week of May, because the date I'll be sending out is 31st of May. That's when I think I want to celebrate.
When you've got the final tangible.
Yeah, but I want to look people in the eye, virtually or in person, and like the layout designers, are you okay with it? Is this all right? Is this what you expected? And I'm hoping, because the couple of people who've seen one of the proofs of the journal, I don't want to boast, but they're blown away by it, actually.
That's the best kind of feedback you can ask for, right?
Especially when one of them was my mother. So that's very good feedback.
That's very good. Maybe when you do get the first thing, or when you've got it in your hand and you fancy doing an Instagram live, maybe we can do that. So
yes.
gush over it in real life with everyone.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful.
Before I forget to ask, I will try and, so it will be, you said the middle of May, so it will be that Wednesday, whichever one's best for you. But can it be pre-ordered? Is that something that you're going to be?
Yes, I'm actually just, so the website's live, but quietly just now, because I'm actually hoping, because I've got the cover picture now, and it's a heap of knits, as it should be. And so now I've got the cover picture, so it's kind of the product, part of the product description that goes with the shop. So today or tomorrow, actually, I'm actually just going to add those photographs onto the website, and then it's ready. It's yarnjournal.com. You can look at it now.
I'm going to go and do so. I should have investigated beforehand.
No, because I've deliberately kept it quiet. So I've got some family members have been looking at it. Partly, I mean, my husband's helped me build it, and just a lovely lady as well. And so he part of his profession is testing, technical testing. So he has been all over it from that technical point of view. But just the user testing, we've done a bit of that, which is why I put it live on Friday quietly. But I'm really just wanting to launch it and get it out in the world. So I'll announce that on Instagram pre-orders. But I'll for you designers, I'm going to get a code that you can order it. So all the orders in one place, but obviously no cost.
Ah, I want to buy it. So.
Oh, do you? Well, you can buy it for friends if you like, for family. But yeah, but no, I'd like you guys to have one. It's your effort, part of your reward for all of this as well. So
I will say, I've never worked with a magazine, which is quite cool, without being in the Daily Star or Vogue by accident in both occasions.
Oh, okay.
But I've never worked with a magazine or anything properly, but it was a really nice process. And even though I've got massive anxiety, as anyone that's been with me for a while will know about, grading in particular, which it is what it is. Yeah. You between you and Emily, that was completely negated where it could have been really.
Yeah, but you did the right thing, because you called out, and that was exactly the right thing to do. And hopefully for your future designs, we can do the same again. And everybody's got things that they are particularly good at and things that they really don't want to do. And I do believe in that, getting a bunch of people together who've got complementary skills. And if that means that helps expedite or reduce the stress of your designs, I mean, what's in it for me is I get to use your fantastic designs. I mean, they really are innovative, and I'm so excited about your one for edition 3. But it really is delighted, and just that if it helps with coaching, or it's probably the wrong word, fantastic. That's just an added benefit. Yeah, and I've never worked in a magazine before either, so that's
well, it felt like you had, and you definitely, as a person, you've got amazing like personal skills, and you like making. I'm quite confident in being me, not in myself necessarily, like talking to people and things, but I'm quite confident. But there was a few things that I did. I was like, I don't know if I can really do this. It seems wild to be able to try and grade it for. I'm very happy with the sizing. I think Emily's amazing. But to make me go from like almost panicking, suddenly realizing, wow, this is going to be printed, and to going, it's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine. We've got this. We've got time. We've got, like, yeah, it was a nice process to be a part of. Whereas,
good.
I feel like that doesn't always happen in, not just in knitting, but in any industry. Working with someone for the first time or doing something for the first time can be daunting.
Yeah, I think we're particularly lucky to have Emily. So it's Emily K. Williams of Flutterby Knits, who's the main tech editor, because one of her specialisms is grading, and especially she champions plus sizes, and size inclusivity is probably the better way to put it. And therefore, I don't know if it's therefore, but part of her talent is then bringing in the knowledge of ways of getting a garment to fit different sizes and what different techniques for doing that, and just to be able to draw on that. And it was fascinating to arrange a Zoom call and observe the process. That was it was funny for me. So yeah, no, I think it worked for all of us, and I think Emily got a lot out of seeing you write a pattern that communicated your vision.
It was
she got a lot out of that.
First time, just so we all know, it was the first time that I dabble with it, but more the numbers. But it was the first time I fully almost wrote the entire pattern before knitting it, and that's the opposite to what I'm used to. But I think I would like to continue to do that if I can, more for the practice and, you know, understanding.
It worked, didn't it? Other than the finishing details, which just came later anyway, very little changed after you'd written it, isn't it? It was amazing.
Wow. Yeah, it was really cool. I just yeah, it was, I don't know, it was fascinating that I had no belief that would work for me. I was like, I mean, I wasn't writing it off. I was like, I'm gonna have to like make baby swatches and keep trying the technique before I write it, but I didn't.
Yeah. And you know what, the other thing I really enjoyed was the fact that we were both knitting our samples at the same time.
It was nice. It was a little knit along, but
yes, it was.
It also me panicking slightly, like, what if it is wrong and I've got to make Susan rip out the whole thing?
yeah, I was pretty sure that wasn't going to happen, because it's straight up to the belt loop hole, isn't it? So there would have to be something so wrong with the measurement. Yeah. You'd already worked it out. Emily had already checked it. It just wasn't going to happen. Yeah. And if it did, I wouldn't have really minded.
I'm saying I got to reknit this again. I knitted it at the weekend, but I'm not that upset, other than the fact that I do have a bit of a deadline on this.
Yeah.
Just a good excuse to use the yarn, but hopefully my friend can post it back to me and I can yoink it out and put the wool back into the next project.
Yeah.
I think I've asked you where else you can be found online before, because I'm very aware that you have a doggo to collect.
Oh yeah, if it is beautiful haircut, it'll be all right. Yeah, so just on online, it's just on my website just now, and I'm in the process of working with different suppliers, well, not suppliers so much as shops. So there's a variety of different places that are going to stock it in their shops, and they've got online shops as well. Better not mention any of them yet, if you don't mind. But as well as some sort of craft suppliers, I'm hoping that it's also going to be in some sort of heritage places as well, because there's a lot about history and textiles. And I've actually got one, this beautiful estate in East Lothian, which has got a farm shop and a beautiful wall garden and a garden centre and a gallery, and the most amazing flock of Ryland sheep. They're other ones that have got the curly fringe on. So they're interested in stocking it, and then before the 31st of May, I'll have built up on that and announced it, and hopefully find some suppliers in like the States and Canada and maybe Europe, mainly to reduce people's postage costs. So yeah. But the digital version is available. It will be available. But I love having the paper thing.
Yeah, I quite like the smell.
Yeah, well, me too. Yeah. So it's going to be 176 pages.
Wow.
Quite big, yeah. It's definitely more in the book territory, and it's half these features and half the patterns and the designs.
Wow.
Let me show you this, because I'm so chuffed, because as well as doing all the knitting and the crochet patterns, we've got a crewel work pattern, which is this one.
Oh.
So crewel work. I've got here. So crewel work is basically embroidery, but in wool.
And I saw the picture that's inspired by, and it's come out beautifully.
So it's the ceiling of the Great Tapestry of Scotland gallery in Galashiels, which has just been open since last September. And the lady who designed it, Susie Finlayson, She was one of the ladies, people rather, who was involved in tracing Andrew Crummy, the artist's designs onto the linen that then got sent out to the stitchers. There were over 1,000 around Scotland doing this. And it's just, I'm so chuffed with this. It's just
gorgeous.
Because I've never done embroidery before. And the stitching structure, anyway, I loved it. That is one of the biggest joys, is making everything for me. And Susie's just, I've just asked her and she's delighted to work on another design, probably for the second edition, if not the third, which is based on a sheep's head. I'll just mention that. I'll show you that offline because it's quite an abstract thing. Anyway, never mind.
So exciting.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, why did I talk about that? I can't remember. Anyway, never mind. Another tangent. There's just so much and so much still to learn. That's the thing. Oh yeah, no, you were talking about stockists, weren't you? Yeah, they're just, everybody I speak to, there's something like this name that you're going to give me. There's somebody else to speak to. I'm not going to run out of stories, and it is absolutely wonderful. It is so interesting. I just loving meeting people.
Finding that, and this is because it's such a big focus for me. I keep going on about, you know, I've had a lot of years in my life where I focused on food or health or sleep, you know, moving my body and mental practices, but the connections and face-to-face interaction has always been kind of something I felt, just as I imagine most people in modern society, there's almost a sense of guilt, like you're wasting time because it's not productive, when it's completely physically as well as mentally beneficial. Are you finding that you're finding maybe more connections or a different quality of connections through doing this versus what you were doing before?
Oh, absolutely, both, actually. So many different connections. I was working in financial services in Edinburgh, so completely different range of people, although worked with some wonderful people, I have to say. But it's the personal investment in what they're doing, and the passion. And, you know, it's much more than a business. It's absolute belief in what they're doing, but also that very personal thing of exploring their own creativity. You know, so Iona will, I mentioned that they're not knitters, but although it'd be lovely to be corrected in that and discover that some of them have taken it up.
Yeah.
So I think Michael, one of the owners of the Iona Craft Shop and Iona Wool, so he comes from an art college background.
Oh wow.
So stuff like the labels that they have. So some of the labels, I think it's for the 4ply anyway, which is what the design is, are foil printed, and he's very, very proud, quietly, of these labels and what the images that they give. But I suspect that the colour selection that he's got as well goes back to that background. And then pictures of them doing the sorting, it's just that absolute focus, but joy and
yeah, really considered,
tactile, yeah, joy and investment. And yeah, it's lovely. Yeah. And even though everybody's got their day-to-day stresses, they just seem to be, it's worth it because they get so much out of it as well. And that's what I'm getting to. Certainly enjoyed it, other than the bit of stress of the first edition, but hey.
Yeah, there will always be something right there if we're not living and learning, if there's not.
Exactly. It's just having the balance, isn't it? Making sure that the stresses are worth it for the end result, or don't take over.
And you're consistently aware of if that stress is really necessary, if you need to be panicking about XYZ really, and if you can pass that on to someone else or communicate in a different way to get it.
Yeah. You know. Or reduce it or diffuse it for that other person, so that actually everybody's happier. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I did have something else I was going to ask, but I can't remember. I do have a massive long list, but it was quite nice to hear that, you know, you're finding a different sense of connection and almost viewing. I guess when people are so passionate, they're quite vulnerable, and it's quite nice that a lot of people have been open and to like share their stories and passion, because sometimes you can feel a bit like, I don't know that I can.
Well, there has been a lot of, why are you interested? It's not that interesting. Actually, it is. It is. And I think one of the big things for me is also making the stories accessible, because they might not think it's very interesting, but it is. But it's also absolutely inspiring for people who might want to do something different and discovering where some of these ideas come from. Like the border mill, I've had an article on the border mill of their alpaca rose, and their idea for a mill that's a very small scale mill that specializes in spinning, well, small quantities, but also rare breed and alpaca fleece. But that came in part from, they had a flock of alpacas from where they were in their lives at that point, not even particularly alpaca farmers, but had too much to hand spin. So where would they get alpaca fleece spun? And that led into them. It was just, oh, okay. Yeah, and you can actually buy a yarn that's made of those original alpacas fleece. Yeah, but so it's just all these stories and making them accessible, and hopefully people will find them both interesting but also inspiring, because this is like a gentle evolution to a lot of what people have done. You know, it doesn't have to be a big green wave, you know, and it can be something much more symbiotic, if that's the word.
I've been thinking about this a lot recently. I won't go on about it, but how where I was 3 years ago with doing what I'm doing now, the voice and the purpose is so different. And I didn't realize I was subconsciously trying to figure out what the new voice is. And it is somewhere in more, instead of building connections to me, cultivating a community for other people, and for me to be moving into a face-to-face situation, because 3.5, 4 years alone is, and I'm not ungrateful, because I've got amazing connections as it is, but you know, building that into my day to day and actually working with you has been a joy for that reason. You know, every now and then we'd have a Zoom call and there'd be a bit of chat and a bit of, oh yeah, talking about coffee or
chai tea.
In fact, I'll put that on my list. We must get you some chai.
Thank you. Yes. All recommendations taken.
Thank you so much. I'll go and get my sneaky thing that I've just finished, and I'll stop recording on this one. But I'll do an intro and an outro afterwards, because
we need to add anything in it, and it might even be if you want to edit it slightly, and when I actually get the printed copy, if you wanted to add on 5 minutes.
Oh, we could do an after if you want, and talk about things in a bit more.
Yeah, just whatever. It's just lovely to chat to you.
It's really nice.
But so I need to work out how to send, I'll stop recording as well, how to send my phone recording and also this Zoom. But if I need to get my husband to come and help me with my technical challenge, I should.
Right, I'll hit, and I'll go and get that jumper. It's not that exciting really, but you know. Nice. It's a bit you know, it doesn't look like much, but there's a split hem, quite a drastic,
with drop stitches.
Yeah, so 2 lines along the side, and then one up the bottom of the sleeve.
Oh, lovely.
But the way the sleeves fit is pretty cool, because they fit sort of just above, you know, the sort of a bracelet length.
Yeah.
You can put your thumb in the drop stitch.
Oh, brilliant. It
comes down and is a snuggly jumper. And then there's a few little, just a little bit of distress throughout. I didn't want to make it too sort of, you know.
That's gorgeous.
It's quite cool for, you know, it's a bit different to the 80s thing that I thought it would end up being.
Yeah. What's the yarn you've used?
There's woolly knits, British wool, and then just mohair. Not just.
Well, that is very nice. I was thinking, so if you made a red and black version, you could have a Dennis the Menace. Like,
Freddy Krueger, like there's lots of, even in Drop Dead Fred, they've got a yellow and black. She has like a burglar jumper.
Oh, yes.
Like,
Lots of different versions. Actually, I was going to show you these as well. I'm still recording on the Zoom, but I stopped recording my phone. These are the gloves. So this is Marion who designed this. I keep thinking of you. Look at these. So she's made these gloves. This size. I've got a whole pile of them in different colours, and she's using a similar motif. But she's so pleased because she got a proper gusset. She's got a proper thumb gusset.
like crochet.
Yes, crochet.
Wow.
Amazing. And this stitch, because it's quite dense, is an extended double crochet. So that was one of my learnings out of this whole process. But they only use 30 grams of look at all the colours I've got.
Wow.
30 grams of main colour, so it's quite a small size, and 30 grams of the main colour and less than 5 grams each of the contrast, like pink ones.
Wow. So you could really just, have one skein of yarn and then do all of your ends. Wow.
Just so lovely.
They fit beautifully too.
They do. I mean so that's a large size. Those ones, these are a small size. I can't get those on, but yeah, I love the yellow. And this is the original sample that Marion made, this sort of jade green.
That's so neat.
They are. And actually it's the last pattern I need to announce. But they're great. Anyway, I thought you'd like those.
Yeah, they're gorgeous. So excited to see it all come together.
Oh, me too.
I mean, I can't imagine how it must have felt to have been so involved throughout and then to very shortly be receiving
I can't wait. I'm so it's stuff like stamps. So I've got ink stamps for packaging, and then got these little sheephead stamps. So the little stickers.
Gorgeous.
So this is the
wow.
This this design. So I love this designer called Natty Maid. So it's actually that design blown up is what we're going to use for the crewel work pattern, the sheephead I mentioned.
Wow.
It's these stitches you could get on that.
Yeah, that's going to be so cool.
Yeah, I love that sort of graphic. But if you've got a stationery fetish though,
yeah,
great. Anyway, never mind. I have to go and get the dog.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. It's just lovely to speak to you.
Yeah, lovely to chat with you too. It's nice to do this in the week where normally I wouldn't, be talking to people. I've got
nice to be sociable.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but what I'll do is I need to just get the code for you to order your designer copy, and then you do the pre-order. But yeah, the website's live now, so you can go and have a look. And I think I've got 4 different URLs linked to it anyway, so you can look now. So yarnjournal.com is the main one, but yarnsjournal.co.uk or .com will take you to the same thing.
Oh, cool. That's nifty.
Slightly by accident than design. Because the name of the journal is actually yarn without the S. So it didn't make sense to have it. And I've always called it Yarns Journal, but that was just a bit too different. So hence,
Yeah. That makes sense.
Cover all bases.